we can have a laugh and a joke together. We always do. You know, you got to keep things light, but during the hunt, don't even think about joking. Don't nobody crack a joke. Don't nobody do anything. We both have a walkie-talkie in each vehicle, so as we both know what we're doing, there'll be no jokes cracked. When the flight's over, then it all starts again.
It's free for all then.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, obviously, with being such close friends and being so similar in so many ways, when we do hunt together, we know what we both expect. If it's Ian's flight, I know what's expected of me, and vice versa. We work very, very well like that.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Told podcast, and this is now the 12th episode of our series featuring falconers from the UK, and this episode features one of the falconers who is responsible for making this podcast series happen, being Simon Tyers, who you've heard on the podcast before, and who is also the author of The Specialist Falcon. If you haven't picked up your copy already, head to thespecialistfalcon.com and do so. It's a great book, well put together, lots of great information in it, and even incorporates some of the newer technologies like drones and things like that. So if you haven't, like I said, head to thespecialistfalcon.com and pick up your copy today. It should be on every falconer's bookshelf. And this episode was another important and special episode for me to record. I think mainly because, to me, this episode kind of touches on the other really important aspect of falconry. At least it is to me, and I can feel comfortable saying that it's a very special aspect of many other falconers' practice as well, being the friendship and the camaraderie side of things. And I know for me personally, without that aspect of falconry, it wouldn't be near as fun, and it wouldn't be near as special to me. Being able to get out in the field with other friends and other people who have helped grow my falconry and have helped me along the way, you develop these special and unique friendships and bonds with people that you wouldn't, I think, otherwise make. And this episode was a good one to kind of touch on that aspect of things, and I was fortunate to be able to sit down with Simon Tyers and Ian Butler, who have been two almost lifelong friends in falconry, and it was great getting to talk to them about their practice and some of their experiences in the field, and kind of how they work with each other as well, and how they form their bond in falconry. So all that being said, I give you all Simon Tyers and Ian Butler. Here we go. It's been nice getting to know you a little bit since you arrived, an hour ago, Ian?
Yeah, about an hour.
About an hour ago, yeah. Well, we haven't got a chance to talk to you before, but, you know, all the things that I've heard about Simon and whatnot over the past day or two here, I'm kind of interested to go ahead and hear some about your background and how you kind of got inspired to kind of look into and or pursue falconry, and learn a little bit about you here, because we haven't really got a chance to talk face to face yet. So Go ahead and tell us some about some of your history.
Yeah, we'll do. When I first started, it wasn't originally through falconry. There was a politician called Beeching, and what he did, he stripped all the railways out, which just left loads and loads of access through fields and everywhere. And I lived right amongst it all, and there was a whole network, and I used to virtually live every spare minute down there. And that included bird nesting and, you know, anything to do with wildlife. Marvellous. I used to really enjoy that. But that, if it wasn't for the guy called Beeching, it may never have happened, because it gave me access onto public land where you won't get into trouble. So that's what started it. And if you like, it wasn't even birds of prey. My first love was a bird called a house martin. It's very similar to a swallow, but it's a shorter, stockier bird. And it was just the shape that intrigued me, and watching them fly about. They're very aerial, so you can sit and watch them, and that is what sparked it with me. I've always enjoyed any type of wildlife. It's not just falcons, it's anything. But I guess the main thing that actually did kick it off was when I went to see a film called Kess. And absolutely, and then I'd got one straight after that and never looked back. Kestrels, yes, I had one for years. In fact, I went to a funeral the other day, and it was a guy that I met a long, long time ago. My first day's work that I ever went to, he called me over to his machine where he was working, and he said, "You've got a kestrel, haven't you?" And I were only 16 at this time. And I said, "Yeah, how do you know that?" He says, "Because you walk by my house every day with your kestrel, going to a green field," which, that brings it home to you. But I've been flying birds now for nearly 50 years. It's a long, long time. But seriously, probably 40 of them. I mean, to start with, it's just a case of learning birds, learning and understanding their behaviour and how you act towards them. So to be able to take the original step and have a bird is not the same as hunting. Hunting absolutely encompasses a hell of a lot more than that. So handling birds, probably I would say 10 years. And then for the rest of the time, it's been hunting. I have a real big drive to hunt. It's not have a bird and just keep it because it looks pretty. It was all about hunting. I mean, I've hunted dogs, I've hunted birds, I've shot, I've fished, I've done the whole lot. So it's that driving instinct. Now, over the last 10 years or so, I guess with me being softer now, I don't like to go and shoot things. Not no longer. And I don't like killing things unnecessary. We have vermin on our ground, foxes. They do kill our game birds, but I don't particularly like the thought of killing them because they have to make a living. If it has to be, it has to be. But really, I thought, no, better not. And there's no better way for me to do it than let one of my birds do it. Much better way. Much nicer for me. And they enjoy it, and I can enjoy watching them. And I'm not actually physically involved. We're going killing the quarry. The birds, usually by the time you get there, they're well dead. So, yeah, that's smashing. So that's my background. Bearing in mind, I mean, where we come from, it's, what can I say, very poor. A very poor background, no money. So to get to where we are now is a hell of a transformation. Because at one time, you hadn't got that sort of ladder to develop and got higher up. It was you were down there and that's where you stayed. But, it just shows it is possible to be able to move on and, get the very best out of falconry.
Was the public land access back in those days, was there a lot more of it than as opposed to now where that everything's like privately owned and stuff? Or
not really.
Was it
not
much different?
No, absolutely not. No, if anything, access is maybe easier now.
Really?
Footpaths, they're well walked, but you couldn't really fly birds on them, you see. And, as a young kid, you're full of energy, you want to run around. It was just so perfect. And most of the railways then were actually dug into the ground, which made like a deep cutting, and the walls were about 15 foot high, and it was stone. So mainly it were the birds that nested in the stone walls that he used to be really interested in. But it's where you live, I think. If you live near the coast, you're interested in seabirds. It just depends whereabouts you are to what you really specialise in.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, everybody has those little things that, for whatever reason, it triggers their interest. And that's one of the things that we always like to find out from people, because while there are some common similarities, whether it be a book, a movie, a conversation between friends, whatever the instance is, there's always seems to be that little something that sparks people's interest and gets them kind of going. But, well, I mean, I guess that kind of takes us to, how in the hell did you meet this guy over here? And I guess you should go ahead and say hi, Simon.
Yeah, hi, John. Just before we go down that road, just going on a little bit more what you just touched on, and back in our day when we were kids, there's very little else to do. And most, like your friends, I mean, Ian, we didn't know each other when we were really young, but we both come from the same area, the same county, from Nottinghamshire. But as children then, there was very, very little to do. We didn't have the Xboxes and all the rest of it that they have nowadays, and to entertain yourself, you went out, you went up the fields, you went up the woods, and it just developed from there. I would say there was little else to interest us, and you spent all your waking hours watching bird nesting, as Ian said, and then ferreting and catching things, and it just developed. We're both identical in our desire as hunters. That's how we describe ourselves, and that's been implanted in us from the very word go, I think. It's just developed and never left us, but in those days, that's what you did. We both had the interest to educate ourselves on falconry, and the only way in those days was books. And obviously, throughout, we still now discuss the old books. Uncannily, we read the same books. We looked at the same pictures. We send each other, what's book's this picture from? And
I do think you were really lucky to have a mentor. It would have meant the world to me. I'd had 2 or 3 birds, never spoke to a soul.
Yeah.
Ever. And everything I learned, as Simon says, out of a book from the library, and then you try and save your pocket money in order to be able to buy the book. And then out the book, in the back, normally there were addresses of things to do. And as a kid, I were writing on airmail paper to Pakistan, asking for price lists of falcons. And I got no idea. You know, as a kid, things weren't expensive from Pakistan, but not on my pocket money, not a chance.
No, not at
but
all.
I've still got the airmail paper, because in those days it used to be really, really thin. And it was special airmail paper. And I've still got the falconry lists at home showing how much each bird was, how much a pair of bells was, and a leash, and do you want its eyes sealing? And this were all done off my own back. This, not because anybody told me. All this were my own legwork. And to be able to have a mentor, it would have meant so much to me. I have made mistakes with birds.
oh, we all have.
Absolutely
We all have in a day.
made mistakes,
that's-
avoidable mistakes, which is worse when I look back at it now. And hopefully that could have been eliminated. I didn't intentionally do things, but it happens.
Well, and the truth of the matter is it's never going to be completely eliminated. It's just reduced. And
Sure.
and you know, I mean, even with great mentorship, I mean, we all have occasional we're humans. We're not infallible, and even with guidance, we all do stupid stuff. I mean, it is what it is. But with that, I mean, I do 100% agree, and most people, I think, would agree that without that foundational guidance, there is a lot of completely unneeded and unnecessary mistakes, though, that you can cut out. So, yeah, I mean, I agree totally with what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful, really, how your systems run over there. I really do. It's just a nightmare now. You know, if you want to mentor now, it's very difficult because there's so many people clambering. If you put yourself available, you would have dozens of people where you really one-to-one's best, where somebody can just deal with you and that's it. And then, you know, then you find your footing.
But that's how we both developed, by this desire to find people and to find other people that were doing it. I mean, you've had my history before, and I latched on to a guy that I found down the road with goshawks and went from there. And then that led, I mean, back in the day there, the British Falconers Club was fairly elitist. We read about it. We read about all what went off. We both read about long winging and game hawking, and at that age probably never even dreamt that we would ever do what we've achieved in our falconry journey so far. But at the time, though, we discovered, well, I would say my father, he encouraged us, and he he helped with and was included in the falconry, we discovered a local falconry club, and that was called the East Midlands Hawking Club, which was a small group of people from the area, from the East Midlands, that were all into hawking. They met at Melton Mowbray for various meets and in pubs and all the rest of it, and through that, me and the chap opposite both ended up at meetings, and and it started from there.
Yeah.
I'll let Ian carry on.
His dad used to take him. Bless his heart. What his dad didn't do to keep him happy was magnificent. And to have a dad like that is absolutely splendid. And his dad used to turn up and be the secretary of that club and do everything, all the background work. You know, I've got every bit of admiration for that bloke. I really have. Because just look how his son's turned out.
Yeah, look how he's turned out.
Yeah. But
Careful now, fellas, careful.
I don't think we even spoke to each other much, did we there?
Not in the beginning, no.
No, I don't think we did.
No.
And then where I used to live, one day I got a knock at the door. And I went to answer the door. And it was young Simon stood there. And, wow, what are you doing here? And he'd bought a house just over the road from me. And I'd got a young goshawk then. And it was an imprint and it was screaming. And he just followed the noise. Straight to my arse, he did. So he'd only just bought that.
That's right, yeah.
So then it were a matter of building mews, weren't it?
Yeah, getting everything
and
set
then
up.
every single night, going down the fields together.
That's right, doing everything like with goshawks. We both had goshawks. We in the close hawking season, we used to go around watching sparrowhawk nests and yeah, just everything. And as Ian said, like all the time out with the birds and the dogs and just doing what we do. And that's where it really, really started to kick off. And then obviously more and more hunting. Then after only a couple of years of owning that property, that's when my job came up. My job opportunity with John Fatal was a falconer, which I went and informed Ian first of all, and Ian knew of the position and all the rest of it and what went with it, and was quite surprised that I was going to up sticks with a young family and move areas and take it on. But it went from there, and Ian used to come down regular visits to join us down there on the estate, not just with hawking, but doing all sorts on the estate with us, etc.
So I guess, is this the point in time where we can kind of read between the lines or fill in the blanks, so to speak, and is Mr. Ian here kind of the previously unnamed hunting partner that you referred to at one point? Or?
Exactly, yes. This is the anonymous, unnamed hunting partner. He who wished to remain anonymous.
And the plot thickens.
That's right. Well, you know what we had to go through to drag him down today and tempt him down to...
I struggled to get in. I'd been asking for weeks if I could come on. But... yeah, I mean, that's how we knew each other originally.
Well, how old were you guys around that time that you first started?
20...
Yeah, well, it was, I was 20 then when I bought the... Well, I was 19 when I bought the house.
There you go then, so I'd be 21 or 22.
The house I actually bought, I sold it to this guy.
Yeah. It's a hell of a price.
Oh,
that
huge
is where he
profit.
made his money. That's where he became very rich. But then... I used to hunt in Lincolnshire, which is about 65 mile away from Nottinghamshire, where we both met. So while Simon had gone off to Mr. Fairclough's at Lichfield, I then, instead of travelling backwards and forwards, I moved out to Lincolnshire. See, I used to, when I came to Lincolnshire, before I actually lived there, I used to stay every weekend in a caravan in Lincolnshire. Come all throughout the hunting season and hunt on 2 days a week, and then back home, back to work, another 5 days at work, then back to Lincolnshire. And in the end, ended up buying a property out in Lincolnshire, and that's where I am now. And would you believe it, when I moved out there, by that time, I'd got a breeding pair of goshawks, breeding my own birds, and never went hunting again with a goshawk in Lincolnshire. After all that trouble, I didn't actually do it then anymore. And I took a break from hawking. I'd got a business to start, and I'm sure you know, it's a passion and a love, falconry. But in order to do it right, you've got to be very focused. And I'm afraid it played second fiddle to my business, because I had to get that going. That was the most important thing. And there you go, Simon will tell you the same thing.
Yeah. Well, as you all know, my background with the dogs, and I did the falconers position till 2002. And anyway, we're not going into too much detail. We've done that before. But yeah, business and future takes priority, and you have to look at things a little different for a while. But as for the pair of us, we both got ourselves into a position where we can go, but we carried on doing the falconry to more than we'd ever dreamt of, and in a position that we'd ever dreamt of. Where we are now today, I mean, between us, I can tell you because I keep very accurate records. Don't I? But we do over 100 days hunting a season between us. That's proper, and that's not including training. That's 100 days plus actual hunting. Pheasants and partridge, we are fortunate we're in a position where we can release sufficient game to do that. We don't rely on anybody to do it or buy days. We do our own game. We stock all our own ground. We maintain it all ourselves. And we basically live and breathe it from the day the birds are taken up. Next month, we live and breathe it right through till end of the season.
So it's every day. If the weather's good and you haven't had a kill with that bird the day before, we're out there. Nothing would stop us. I even struggle to say that a little bit, because this guy, he comes over and stays with us, and no matter how bad the weather, our hawking ground is possibly 10 minutes, even less than that away. And I am forced to go out and sit in my car with the windscreen wipers going and chucking it down with rain or snow, and we have to sit there for about 3 hours till we go back home, where we could have stayed at home.
There's always a chance. He who dares is the phrase.
Yes,
he who dares.
So yeah, that's. But
yeah, I mean it's not just the falcon, but it's everything that goes with it. It's the game management, the release program, and all the rest of it. I know we release a lot of game to sustain our hunting. We are very conscious of providing quality game all the way through. Some people have negative views on release game, but if it's done properly, we've seen pheasants and partridge. You can't tell the difference between them and wild stock if they're managed properly. And I say we take great pride in that, and it's down to hard work on the ground to keep the volume of game there and the amount of ground we cover. It takes an awful lot of work, keeping feeders maintained, keeping an eye on the birds, and all the rest of it. It's as much time as it is with the hawks. We spend mornings out there, first light in the morning, feeding, and also observing the game, watching the game, because obviously your field craft, or watching your quarry is vitally important.
Sure, yeah. Well, and so when you say 100 days in the season, like how many months is your typical season here?
Well, the partridge start on the 1st of September. I mean, as I say, we hunt solely pheasants and partridge. I've had my days at grouse, and this is our day-to-day hawking, and such is the programme. We couldn't release ourselves for a month, 6 weeks on the grouse. We have a negative effect on the programme. So we concentrate on the low ground. We've got partridge start on the 1st of September and finish on the 31st of January. Pheasants start a month later on the 1st of October, and they finish on the 1st of February.
Yeah, so basically you guys are hunting about every other day-ish or more.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we fly a number of birds,
right.
Number of birds each. Ian's flying two birds. He's flying a tiercel and a female J. peregrine, and everybody knows, obviously, I fly my two J. Barberries and the new boy, the J. Black Shaheen. So we're out, and some afternoons, it's not every afternoon that we've got 5 birds to fly.
Yeah.
We work both the same as I've detailed in the past. We go for the one flight, the quality flight, and if we kill, the bird's fed. Doesn't fly the following day, ready to go the one after that. But as I say, we've got 5 birds between us. Some afternoons, yes, we've got 5 birds, but we've got the game and the volume of ground to supply the flights that we need. And we're very choosy on the flights. We don't just take the first opportunity. We have a good spend a lot of time spotting the ground, recceing round, and finding the best setups to suit the birds. If we've got a younger falcon, then obviously we'll pick the best setup for that. If we've got a testing flight, we know which falcon we're going to use.
Yeah, no, that sounds. Yeah, I mean, like for guys that are as ate up with it as you guys are, and you know, a lot of us are, the season never truly ends. There's always something to do, as was evidenced by the just backbreaking, grueling labor that you had me doing yesterday. You know, when I almost suffered anaphylaxis, and you had me wading and diving through everything from nettle to thorns and,
you
and
had
everything
to
else.
experience English nettles.
Yes, yeah.
It's a tradition for newcomers.
Yeah, well, I've experienced it now, so thank you. But yeah, no, and yeah, I think, I mean, whether it's in the States, I mean, at the end of the season, you're prepping kind of, you know, some guys are already thinking ahead to trying to find nests, you know, for, you know, to get sharpshins or Cooper's hawks or goshawks or whatever the case is. And it seems like the guys that are truly ate up with it all are always thinking ahead. You know, there's always something to do.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the season for us, I mean, we always evaluate the season we've had, how the game supply has been, how the release sites have worked. Do we need to change things? Do we need to move sites? Depending on whatever, we have to liaise with the landowners that we're still okay for access the following year. Then, obviously, once we know crop rotation, that has an impact on what we do the following year, where we feed, where we release, etc.
Yeah.
So there's always something to be discussing.
Awesome.
By the way, today is the started harvesting.
Oh, good.
So our farm now is started to harvest, and when they're harvesting, so as we don't have to have nettles, is you drive right up to the pen with a vehicle when it's stubble and do all the work then. So now, as from next week, it's working on partridge pens here. I've got a tearsel to get out the pen next week, so he'll be out and fresh and lively, and he'll take some handling. So everything for me all starts next week, and then it's guns blazing all the way in.
Yeah.
I get broody every year if I've got intermewed birds and there's youngsters about. I get really broody, and I just want to handle birds and be with them. It's every year I suffer with that. And this year, as I've got a 1-year-old bird and a 5-year-old bird, then I don't have to do it in the summer, and it's very difficult not to handle birds for me in summer. Really difficult. Last year I picked my bird up very early,
First week in
beginning of June, yeah, and then it's full on. Right from the start, it's full on, and all you do is think about.
Yeah, that's
your
it.
birds.
Same like all the way through the season, every possible day for hunting. Then we do it.
We've had, a few months off, and to be honest, it is quite nice to have time off and not have to worry.
Sure.
It is that full on in winter. In the morning when you wake up, you think about your birds
And the weather.
And the weather. Oh yes, and the weather. And even now, when I get up in the morning, I start thinking about it. My heart starts racing, and then by the time we're actually jumping in the vehicles, getting ready to go out to the hawking ground, I'm really wound up. Just get on with it.
We're as passionate now as we've always been.
Well, let's transition then to kind of talk about what a typical hawking day looks like for you guys. What's you guys' routine, and with your terrain, your setup with you've talked about the the different areas that you've released birds in, and that you kind of maintain as your hawking grounds and all that. let's talk a little bit then about how you guys go about your approach to hunts every day, the setups, and just kind of what a typical day looks like for you guys.
I'll describe the morning then.
Okay.
I'll describe the morning, then you can carry on from
Okay.
there. Okay. Typical morning. Whether I'm here or whether I'm at Ian's, my routine is the same, and Ian's is pretty much the same as well when we're there. Hawks go out, regardless, 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. They go out to weather. As it gets first light, we normally head off to the ground, usually carrying feed to fill up any hoppers for the game. We have a bit of a recce round for maybe a couple of hours, just seeing of it. You'll see a lot of gaming on because we hunt primarily in an afternoon. We always do that. That suits our schedule. We always hunt in an afternoon or from lunchtime onwards. We go out first thing in the morning, and there is game everywhere. We see, and it gives us a good idea of actually what is there.
It would be impossible to do any hawking at that time.
That's
of the
right.
day
Too much
because
game.
There's so much game about.
But then, we'll talk about the afternoons later on. But afternoons, it's a different game altogether. We have to work for the game then. But we go out, we monitor the game, we fill hoppers up, we have a good check round and everything, and just see, it's policing the ground as well, security wise, for not having the wrong sort on the ground. We're out in Lincolnshire; it's renowned for hare coursing, etc. So we just keep an eye out for those sort of things. But yeah, just maintaining everything. It's all our pens can be driven to and observed from a distance or from the vehicle, so we're not disturbing game. And it's just really, as I say, a good thorough check round, and the hoppers are filled and not been turned over by the deer, etc. We do that. We normally head back after a couple of hours. Breakfast, sit and look at weather apps and find one that looks good and we approve of.
And then that's the one we use.
And then obviously, prior to the end of October, we're starting to get ready. 12:30 for usually about a 1 o'clock set off. After the end of October, when the clocks go back, we are an hour earlier. Okay, we're 11:30 ready for a 12 o'clock start, because obviously as the days get shorter, we still want to get as many hours in as we can. And as I say, flying a team of birds, we've got to be out there. We've got to be out there and covering the ground. So birds are picked up on time, GPS is set up, all the birds are put into the flying jessers and telemetry and all ready to go on the cadgers. Dogs are in, and we're all, as Ian says, we're as excited to go and as we are every day in anticipation. We don't come back often excited and full of happiness, but you always wake up in the morning, you always go out with that enthusiasm.
Same thing again, hoping for better. But the priority for me is we have 5 falcons, always looking for 5 flights. Always looking for 5 flights. And usually, right at the end, we manage to get a flight. And whether we get it all kills, which we don't, but just to be able to fly 5 birds at quarry, because we won't release a bird hoping. There's no such thing as that. You know, everything's carefully watched. We try, if we bothered some birds a covey somewhere, then we try not to bother them again the next day. We move on to another covey and keep an eye on them. You know, if you keep hassling the same birds every time, no, they won't have it. They'll be off your ground and you'll never get another chance at them. So in the afternoon, we'll get out there. It's great because we've got 2 vehicles, so we don't split up. Simon looks out the right-hand side of his car. I'll look out the left-hand side of our car, and then we will scan all the fields, and we'll work our way through every single field that we've got. First of all, we'll use thermal binoculars. They're not always the best at great range, but they are a massive help closer up. And so we're both scanning either sides. We travel one behind the other, don't we?
Interesting. We're a couple of 100 yards apart. Okay, because what can often happen, I can pull up, scan an area, and see nothing. I move off, and a head will come up. Okay, seeing what I'm doing, seeing that I'm going, a head will come up. This will be spotted by the car further back. If I can just touch on one thing. Yes, we spot. We've had, if we've got ground where it's like, say, oilseed rape, if we've got that sort of ground, then we will often check a field out, and if there's birds showing, then the dogs will come into play. We'll use the pointers or whatever. It's sort of a mixture, but the vast majority is initial, as Ian was saying, was spotting, seeing what's about. Because like the name of the book, we are specialists. We specialise this falcon for this quarry, so we want to be sure we're getting the right quarry under that falcon. Okay.
Yeah. So we do spend an awful long time spotting. If you went as a spectator, it must be a little boring. For us, to be able to spot things is nearly as good as a kill. We really, really get excited when you see a bird in the right place. Yep, that's it. That's the one we're going for. So not so much with English partridges, but with pheasants, you're only halfway there. Because a cock pheasant is really formidable on its own ground and avoiding you. And we want to be sure we don't take slips unless we've got a chance.
We know he's going.
We're going to get a flush.
We're going to hold him there. We're going to pin him down.
So if we're able to drive over the fields, we will drive round in circles round the pheasant, and in the end they just tend to crouch down and stay put. But you have to drive round them in a circle, or you can even herd them if you need to. Two vehicles as the pheasant's running, and then try and cut it off from getting to cover. And, it's a big old job. That takes more time than the actual flight.
Yeah, getting the right setups.
But it's all fieldcraft that, until Simon's book, I haven't read anything about. Everything to do with fieldcraft has been actually picked up by us, and the best method to do it.
Yeah.
And where we are at the moment is the best we've come up with.
That's right. Yeah.
But fieldcraft is by far the most important thing to make a successful falcon. Because without that, and putting a bird up on the off chance where there's no kill after, no flight even, they get demoralised. But all our birds know that when they're away, they know that the quarry is there. So that's what we always strive to do.
And your fieldcraft starts before the flight. It's like knowing where you're going to find your game on certain days with certain weather, certain times of the year as the winter gets harder. Game will move from one area to another. Better holding ground, and certain winds, they'll be in one area. Different conditions, yeah. So you've got to adapt. You've got to know. You've got to think like your game. Know where to find your game, because otherwise you could spend an hour searching the wrong area. I mean, we deal with vast areas of ground. As I say, in Lincolnshire, huge areas, and some days can be just totally barren. But when you know your game and you know where it frequents, and you've spent time observing it earlier, feeding times when it's relaxed, you'll get a good idea of where to find the flights and construct something.
Awesome. I'm just more kind of shocked that you read his book more than anything. I'm just,
let me tell you, my books are thumbed through that much, and there's blood and guts on every page. Because what I used to do is get all my books out, and I used to crease them open on the page where I was in the stage of training, all my books, and I laid them all out in front of me and read the whole chapter every single time, and all the books, and then did it from there. It took some doing.
Ian was the first to see every chapter as it was read, because he knows exactly what I wanted to get across. He would give me his honest critique on everything, and he knew what we were aiming to produce, and he was the first to see it every time, and had a huge contribution on things he'd pick up if I'd missed little things. Yeah, he had great pleasure in always saying, well, what about this?
I used to love it.
Yeah, I have a complaint. I have a complaint was the phrase.
This chapter was really informative, except for the fact that it didn't make any sense at all, and you should just do it over. Was that your common input?
Sadly, and it will never be read out on air or in print, but I wrote a chapter specifically for Ian. But unfortunately, nobody will get a chance to read it.
No, have you had the pleasure?
Shucks.
Have you had the pleasure of chapter 9A?
No, I haven't. No.
Oh, well, you really must.
Oh, God.
You really must.
Great. Well, I'm having a couple more beers before I read that one. But
yeah.
Anyway, so was there anything left that you guys needed to describe in your routine?
Well,
like as far as your...
Yeah, I mean... We can have a laugh and a joke together. We always do. Mm-hmm. You know, you got to keep things light, but during the hunt, don't even think about joking. Don't nobody crack a joke. No. Don't nobody do anything. We both have a walkie-talkie in each vehicle, so as we both know what we're doing, there'll be no jokes cracked. When the flight's over, then it all starts
it's
again.
Free for all that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, obviously, with being such close friends and being so similar in so many ways, when we do hunt together, we know what we both expect. If it's Ian's flight, I know what's expected of me, and vice versa. We work very, very well like that. You'll do things instinctively without the other one actually saying or whatever. We will find a setup. We'll discuss obviously which bird is going to be flown, and then obviously if it's one of my birds, Ian will assist in a way obviously that he knows I need him to.
I mean,
what will often happen is, say if it's Ian's flight on a pheasant, I will constantly observe the pheasant. Well, we do this on all the game. While the falcon's being prepared, we trust the other one to monitor the game, make sure it's not moving, it's not behaving in a way that would cause us to be concerned. If there's any doubt, whoever is watching will call, and obviously you trust each other, because we don't want to waste the flights. We don't want to have unnecessary time wasted with the birds or putting them up, and it's not going to happen. So we both know what each other expects.
It's a lot of pressure. And it's a lot of pressure for every single flight, because you just don't want it to go wrong. You know, we're very fortunate, or we spend a long time observing before we get out of the car.
It's got to be right.
Every single time. But if we're lucky enough to have a kill, the person who's feeding the bird up stays with their falcon. The other one, they're off in their car, already looking for another flight. You know, and if we can make it work like that, that's lovely. You know, because if you both sat feeding falcons up, and you've got 5 birds to be fed up, because...
We never rush a bird. If it's killed, we never rush it, feed it up like it's fed there and then on its kill till it's had its required amount. And as I say, with the aid of the radios, with the aid of GPS, you can still be involved, you can still see the flight. Ian can be feeding up on a kill, I can be the other end of the fen somewhere. We let him know there's going to be a falcon in the air. He can watch it on the GPS. He can obviously be fully aware with the radars of what's going off. And although you're not there, you're still involved. But we have to crack on.
But I must stress that hawking together is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, solo. I mean, there's some guys that don't social hunt, and that's their business, and I completely understand, but I wouldn't be doing this near as much as I do if I didn't have a group of guys to do it with as well. I mean, that's part of the fun for me. That's a huge part of the fun for me.
Yeah.
So I mean, I totally get it, but
yeah, we're onto an awful lot together.
Yeah.
And you know, on the highs, it's marvellous to be able to celebrate a kill or a good flight together. And on the other hand, if something goes wrong, you have your mate there by your side. Mm-hmm. If a bird, for instance, goes missing, that's it. We leave somebody with a car, with a lure in it and some food, just in case the bird returns to where it was slipped from. Or the others will be off with GPS and doing the tracking. I've got to stress how much I enjoy it. if you're doing it on your own, it's very difficult. You know, you're falcon ready. Who's going to keep your eye on the game? Because the game can move. You might not see it. You might not see it fly off. And then you can be busy trying to work a patch of ground when you've got a bird above your head and nothing. And you just wonder, where did it go? But it did fly off. So somebody has to be watching. It just makes things so much easier, don't it?
That's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It does.
Yeah, by far. Far. And then, as Ian said, you share the moment, you share the downs, but you share the ups as well. I mean, we had a phenomenal day in January, which was, we often catch a couple of brace, like catch with 4 birds and maybe not with a 5th. But in January, we managed to have a kill with each of the 5 birds in January on wild game.
That's 5 flights and 5 kills.
Right. And all in great style, which is what we're all about. If we weren't so particular on what we expected from the falcons, yes, and with our game supply, we could catch a lot more, but we both think the same. It's the quality of the flights. And I think, that started off as a special day. The second flight was my 100th partridge for last season, the Storm. Yeah. And it just got better. And then obviously as the day progressed, you took the first one with your tearsel. I took the second one, which ended to be up my 100th partridge, as I've just said. The third flight was with Smog, the J Black Shaheen. And then, of course, the pressure's building now.
Yes.
3 out of 3. We found a super setup on some pheasants had gone into a dike which we'd not really flown at all last year.
No,
we found it by chance that birds were, again on a reconnaissance mission. We found an area where birds were frequenting and in a super dike, and we thought we've got to try and find a setup here. And anyway, we went. There were birds there. We worked it between us. It was me and Ian and the girls with us. And we did it in our usual style. And we produced a cock pheasant for Poppy for Ian's J Peregrine, which she took lovely across the field. And of course, that's the pressure's on this
then the pressure is immense.
Not only was the pressure on then, but this was January, so afternoons are short and time's getting on. So once we knew she'd got it and we'd had the photos as we do with everyone, it was right. I've got to go. I've got to see if I can find a partridge. So we went to an area that was we knew we'd got birds about and searched, and in the end, I just managed to find some partridge and radioed in. Yep, we've got a mark. Ian was just picking the falcon up at that end, so we knew that was safe. Right, okay. So it was Sonic, the J Barbary. So who's. If you want a bird as the last bird where there's pressure, he's the boy.
What a reliable bird.
He's the boy. So we put him up, and I think by time Ian and Emma came over with a vehicle, I mean, he was skied out anyway, and it was it was already there for the flush, and
a very
and that was
special
it.
day.
Yeah, lovely, super last kill of the day, and that was it. And and it's not a numbers game, but things like that when you can achieve a kill in quality from every falcon in January with January game, that takes some doing.
But you mentioned the girl, Emma. You've got to give it to the girls, you know.
Yep.
Because they're not anything to do with falconry. They're doing it for us. And I would find it extraordinarily difficult to be able to offer that much time towards my birds if we hadn't got the backing from the girls.
Exactly.
And without them, I don't know as it would be possible.
No, it wouldn't. Not to the standard and not to what we do and how much we do it through the season. I mean, it's...
Yeah.
We live and breathe it. The girls are a massive part of it.
Aren't they?
And they enjoy it. They don't enjoy it when things go wrong. And the big black cloud of falconry is hanging over your head. And they don't enjoy it then. They know.
They know when not to talk.
Fair enough.
But they keep us supplied with
food and drink,
all the celebratory drinks afterwards, and
yes,
cakes and
of course.
Goodies.
Come on, Simon. What do we do after?
Well, that's right. Every kill is the quarry is toasted after every kill. We toast it with a sherry. And depending on the time of year, that could either be leading up to Christmas, we follow it with a mince pie or whatever. And it's our little tradition, but we always raise a toast to the game in respect.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not necessarily straight away. If we've got another flight, then we have to have two toasts.
That's right. Some afternoons can be finished with 3 or 4 toasts. Which
Awesome. Yeah, no, every group or it seems like every partnership group, whatever, they all have their own little traditions.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but-
great. That's great.
To get back home, then put the birds away for the night, and then, it's such a weight off my shoulders. That's it then. So then we'll
we discuss the day.
Well, yes, we do.
Yeah.
We don't agree on everything, but then who does? But it's not really anything to do with falling out. As many opinions as that you've got, the better. Healthy debate.
Well, that's right. I mean, although like we're the best of buddies, we hawk together. We've got different views on what we want from our falcons, what we like, what we expect, and all the rest of it. But that neither of us criticise each other for that. That's how we are. We appreciate what each other wants from the birds, and that's it. And that's what falconry is about. It's not competitive. It's not a competition. Whose bird is higher? Whose bird is better? Whose bird's caught more than whatever? It's down to the individual falconer what they want.
Well, and let's face it, you can't let the other guy be happy for too long.
Oh
no, you've got to make sure that that any kind of self-esteem or confidence or anything that's been built up from this amazing flight, you let them have. I mean, our group, especially when we're hunting jackrabbits and stuff, we got a 24-hour rule. You're allowed to gloat a little bit. You're allowed to be a little bit overly obnoxious about things with a catch, but it only lasts 24 hours. If you start gloating and everything after the 24-hour period has expired, you get slammed down, and it's we all stick to it pretty hardcore. And I mean, when the guy, opposite you goes, well, let's talk about that flight again. We're like, no, let's not. No. We've talked about it enough, and you've had your moment of glory, and we've moved on. We've all moved on, and so do you. You need to move on too.
That's lovely. But at night, when my head touches that pillar, I always go to sleep thinking about what's happened that day and did it work right, didn't it work, what can we do? But it's without fail, and that's how I go to sleep.
That's right.
On the days walking.
I mean, we have discussions. I mean, if things aren't working with the falcon, we have discussions. And even now, I mean, one of us will suggest something that's, is not what we've done before or is a different idea. And we're just open to discussion throughout.
We're open to new equipment as well.
Everything.
You can never close your eyes and say, "Oh, that's no good." If you've tried it, then you can have an opinion.
Yeah, new methods,
absolutely,
innovation of equipment, technology, and all the rest of it. I mean, although we're very traditional in what we do and what we believe with the hawks and the falcons, if a new innovation or a new way of training comes through and it works, then we'll embrace it, as we have done with the drones, with the GPS and all the rest of it, as we know. The training aids at the end of the day, and if it helps improve the sport, the welfare of the birds, the condition we fly the birds in and all the rest of it, then it's got to be a bonus.
Yeah, no, the wheels have always got to be spinning for sure. But,
the birds are without the doubt the most important thing. I mean, we really cosset all our birds. They're really, really well looked after. Bent feather won't do. Nothing will do. When we get back from hawking, Simon's got 2 particularly pale-fronted birds, and the slightest bit of mud, outside, wet the bird through, clean it, and then come back in, and then it's on with the air dryer before they go to bed. Everything's got to be right. But I don't think that's a bad place to end up, is it?
It's not a bad thing.
No, it's a great place to end up. Yeah.
Cool. Well, so is that your best hunting experience, or do you have another particular story or experience in mind that sticks out in your head whenever you guys have been out together that you want to share?
Well, I don't know how you get on, but I have the good experiences. I bank them, and I don't think too much about them. I look at the bad experiences that I have. Now, we have a local pair of peregrines which is about 6 miles away, and we get trouble from these birds. You know, we've had 2 instances recently. One of Simon's birds were above a covey of partridge, and a falcon were coming in. Now, quite often, the wild falcon will draw your bird away and you'll lose the flight. So Simon's birds were right. It were there above us, so there you go, let's have the flush. Put the birds up, got the flight. Simon's falcon knocked it down. The poor partridge got up and wobbled and flew wobbly. And then the wild falcon come down and knocked it down. And it ended up with Simon's bird catching it.
Yeah.
But my worst experience is a pair of peregrines, both the breeding pair, during a flight. So one of Simon's birds killed a partridge. The wild tearsel came in and started running around the floor, causing a bit of problem. But as they're both similar sized birds, you know, they were very respectful of each other. But the wild tearsel were making a lot of noise. Then all of a sudden the female come tanking in, and she meant real business.
Coming in like a goshawk, close to the ground.
And very good for Simon, his bird left the quarry. Left the partridge, didn't they?
Yeah.
All together.
Yep.
And but it's affected them because that bird, when it gets hold of a partridge, it wants to get to cover. Not in the middle of a field. And you know, rather than plucking the quarry, it'll be looking round all the time. So it's affected them. But I only think the bad moments. The good moments, they're banked.
Well, there's one that you always recollect.
I do recollect a few.
There's one in particular.
I recollect a few.
Right, okay. If I said red legs.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, come on, son. There's nobody better than you.
I'm not describing my own flight. You've talked about that one many times. These are not release red legs. These are wild red legs in Lincolnshire, which you have to treat with the utmost respect. I've written that I don't like to fly red legs. I'm referring to release red legs that you get in big bunches off the neighbouring shoots or whatever, which are a nightmare. But anyway, carry on.
Red legs will tend to run in front of you. So what you've got to do is back a long way off, well out of sight. So the only thing they see is the falcon up above them. And that's the only thing that'll make them crouch down and stay there. But, you know, it's extremely difficult because then you have to have your falcon reliably following you in. And it's so trusting for these birds just to stay with you. And it's a hell of a long walk across really uneven ground, ploughed ground. You know, it's not easy walking by any means. But
which I must say Ian loves to see me having to do.
And to have that much faith in Simon that there's going to be a flush there, and to follow him all that way, and to be able to pinpoint the flight, bearing in mind I'll sit in the car where I can see the partridges, so I can see if they've moved, because if they do, I have to relay that information. But if they stay put, we don't talk, because then Simon knows, or I know, that everything's on as it is, so then we keep very quiet. But the amount of ground Simon covered, and, you know, wow, GB, magnificent bird, so faithful. He really is an absolute pleasure to work with. But it's not luck, but it's a pleasure. And, you know, some of his flights, and to be able to pull a kill off like that from that kind of distance.
And that one particular flight over towards the other Fen Road, where they broke early, where I was a long way off.
But he's so high.
He's not a bird that's just focusing on me. And this one particular flight on these reds, I'd had a mammoth walk round, and they were in a blind hedge that led to nowhere. Once they left the hedge, they had to go, and they went when I was 100 yards from them. But the bird was, obviously the height helped, but he saw them. He's not just focused on me, and yeah.
But we do have some great flights, but I really always focus on the not so good things because I don't want it to go wrong again. You know, how do you avoid it? I mean, you can't stop wild peregrines. You know, it's just a natural thing. So, yeah, all in all, we do extremely well. We've been very fortunate that we've not had to come back home with our heads in his hand and something's wrong with the bird. Hopefully,
we've lost a bird.
It will never happen, but it's quite possible. And I do feel sorry for people that it does happen to. To lose a bird in the field isn't as bad as losing it in the mews, but still, it's heartbreaking because there's years of work going into these birds. You know, they're not good from day one. They need to be coaxed, and year on year.
Well, that's right. Yeah, I mean, you see so many birds which are flown in the first year or maybe stretch to the second year, and then that's it. They're either down for breeding or whatever, and it's like any birds get better over year after year after year, going back to Sonic, or GB as is also known. I mean, 9th season coming up, still getting better every season, down to obviously the discipline underneath him, but getting better all the time. And you're not going to see the best out of any falcon in its first couple of seasons.
No. But it's the regimentation of handling the flight the same every time. The bird knows exactly what you're doing. Although we do have an occasional problem because there's people that walk dogs in a similar area to us. And it's certainly happened a few times.
Particularly with the irises. And
they go straight over the person walking the dog and they won't come back to you. No. So that's very frustrating.
Yeah. But they learn. They learn after the years. You've just got to keep putting them up in the situation. And they do learn.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, like I said, as far as everything else goes, I mean, I appreciate you guys both sitting here taking the time to, kind of reminisce a little bit and discuss about, things about your routine. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this episode like this, is to kind of reemphasize, because we've done, like I said, we've done some episodes with multiple people and things like that before, but with the sharing of experiences, the kind of storytelling, especially between friends, I wanted to kind of reiterate and capture the spirit of a little bit of why a lot of us do this. And as we mentioned a little bit ago, I mean, a lot of it is about the camaraderie. And yes, I mean, getting to see these birds do what they do up close and personal, getting that front row seat to do it is great. And that's why we all initially do this. But for a lot of us, it's about the relationships also. And the big part of what a lot of this is truly about is those friendships, the relationships you form and you build and you keep, during all the years that you do this. So, yeah, I mean, I appreciate you doing all of this. And real quick, though, from Ian, I want to get one quick last sentiment from you. I've been asking people, for a little bit now, if they want to pass on any, little tidbits, words of wisdom, bits of advice to other generations that might be listening to this, as far as, what you think is important or to keep in mind whenever people are looking into this.
Aside from looking after your bird, which for me is the most important thing, always looking after your bird. But the single thing for me is fieldcraft and learning where to be, how to do it, and why you're doing it. That's by far the most important thing. When I first started, I got no idea on fieldcraft. You just went out with a bird and supposed to go out and catch things.
Well, there's no telemetry either back in those days.
And it's very demoralising to go out and not even get nearly a kill. But it's only through learning and understanding the quarry that you're hunting that's when it really starts to come together. And out in the field, fieldcraft beats everything hands down. So that's my tip. Watch your quarry.
Perfect. Well, do you guys have any last thing that you want to talk about, share anything before we close this up? Or
Well, all I'm saying is we'll be kicking off in the not too distant future again. I'm as excited for this season as I always am with my hawking buddy over there. It's we'll have a fun season. We'll a lot of ups and downs, a lot of beer, a lot of discussions, a lot of frustration, but that's falconry.
Sure.
And we will always continue to strive to do what we do to the best we can.
And it's been a pleasure talking to you, Jonathan.
you as well, my friend. And I'm so glad that I could kind of coerce you into doing this, I guess. And it was well worth it. Like I said, I'm sorry that we all have to suffer each other's presence for a little while longer, but it's all good. Yeah. It's all good. But thank you again so much for driving down and spending the evening. And
thank you very much.
Let's all go and have something to eat and have a few more beers and
Sounds good.
And tell more lies.
Absolutely.
That's it. Cheers, Jonathan.
All right,
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.